Hi there, I'm Chris Devine, and this is Six String World. As I mentioned in my small collection of amps, I happen to have a Boss Katana Mark I. It's the 50-watt version. I'm not against solid-state amps. They really have come a long way in the past 10 to 15 years. I did a review of the Boss Katana 100 for Performer Magazine back in February of 2017, and I'll put a link to that article in the space below. Now, this Katana 50 watt that I have, my cousin actually bought it in the summer of 2018, and he really didn't bond with it. In fact, about 6 months later, he asked me if I was interested in buying this amp from him for $100. I was like, done. In fact, all the guitar sounds you saw me playing through in the opening video wasn't my usual pedal board and Strymon Iridium setup, but it was the Boss Katana running out of the combo of headphone and recording output into the interface. If you like this channel, please hit the subscribe button, and the bell icon will let you know when I put up a new video. And if you like this video, click the thumbs up button. And if you want to share this, well, there's a button for that as well. And that'd be great. As I mentioned, I had some experience with the Katana amps from my review, and I found this kind of amp to be a very simple and giggable combo. But I can call this the bass version, not like bass guitar, but more like the simpler model of a car or a truck. It does all the things the other ones does, might be missing a few bells and whistles. But software-wise, the sounds are shared with the other Katana amps, and I found it pretty easy to edit with their software that you can put on a computer or a laptop. The clean sounds are beautiful, and the high gain tones are excellent. The only tough thing I have found on any type of solid-state amp is dialing in those semi-cleaned, crunchy, when you hit it a little bit harder type sounds. And I find that that's not uncommon with with all solid-state amps, but the EQ was a little bit dark focused, especially with some headphones, and it didn't matter what kind of headphones, but it was always a little darker in my experience for that. So, but I had this amp for a while. I used it around my old place. When my wife and I moved here in late 2019, it didn't get as much use. As COVID hit, I wasn't gigging a lot, and I used my Strymon Iridium for recording as well as practicing. However, I did bring the Katana Mark 50 as a backup to my electric gigs, just in case something went wrong with my Blues Junior. And I'll tell you, it didn't get used, but I wasn't about to part ways with this amp. I got such a good deal on it. So what I really wanted to be able to do is dial in a good neutral clean tone to use with my pedal board, and get a dirty tone that I could also use if I needed to. And I could ride my volume knob to get through a gig, whether it's just, you have a clean and a dirty tone, use your volume knob to get that kind of crunch tone. That would make sense, especially if I could do that with the Katana. And I was also kind of limited though, because there's on the Mark I 50 watt, you really only can use a 2-button foot switch, which brings me to some of the 50 watt Mark I's limitations. What is really lacking is some of the features on the more expensive core models. Basically an effects loop and a power amp in connection. So if you have a pedal board or a modeler that you want to run in, you can basically treat the Katana as a powered speaker on the 100 watt versions and up. And like I said, the 50 watt version only has a 2-button foot switch. Now, originally, this amp only had 2 savable presets, but a firmware upgrade a few years ago made it possible that you could have 4. And it organizes them under the format of 1A, 1B, 2A, and 2B. Now, unfortunately, it still only works with the 2-button foot switch. So the user to switch between the patches of 1 and 2 would go on one button, and the second button toggle between the A section and the B section. So if you were playing on patch 1A and you want to go to 2B, you'd have to press the first foot switch, then the second foot switch. Now, I know it's not really that hard to keep straight, but the LED lights that you have will indicate whether it's on or off. And just kind of trying to keep that straight. It's not like it's a green LED and a red LED or different colors. It's either on or off, and you gotta kind of remember in your mind. I always think of, if an LED is on, something's functioning the way you want it. If it's off, it's usually out of function. So it kind of falls short with that 2-button foot switch. Now, since this upgrade was a software fix, I was hoping there was some sort of hack for a pair of foot switches to allow foot switching between them, maybe like kind of like a normal amp would have a channel foot switch function. I've had some friends that had Mesa Boogie amps that have had 4 modes, and having a 4-button foot switch allowing them to switch between all of them kind of made sense. And I was wondering if that was something someone could do, or if I should maybe just pull the trigger on the Boss foot switch that had the dual mode and just kind of get used to running it as a tap dance to get through 4 sounds with just 2 buttons. But I did some digging, and I found Bright Onion Pedals. They're a company out of the UK. I found them on YouTube, and they make a 4-button foot switch, and the price wasn't that much more to me than the Boss FS6. Even better, they do offer some custom options, such as enclosure colors, label colors, and LED colors for the actual channels. You can also get, I got mine with green, yellow, amber, and red lights. I went with an unfinished enclosure with black graphics. I will admit it looks a bit like the older Mesa Boogie foot switches, like I mentioned earlier. It's a bit large, though. It's almost as big as my Boss MS3, but I prefer that linear layout. They do happen to have a 2+2 design, which is a little bit smaller, but this just I liked it all set out in one row, so it's perfect. I have to say, it really made me very happy to be able to switch through all 4 presets with ease. I now get all that additional functionality out of this amp. How I'm having this set up now is I'm planning on setting the first button to work with a neutral sound to be used with my pedal board, as I mentioned. The second sound will be clean with a little bit of modulation, a little bit of delay and reverb. Nothing in the Rush or Andy Summers type realm or any sort of real big soundscapey thing. Just a little bit of ambience going on there. The third switch, I do want to dial in a good overall crunch tone, something that will interact with the drive pedal if need be. And finally, the fourth switch would be a good lead, semi-high gain tone, nothing too saturated, but something with enough sustain to really cut through the mix. Now, you might be asking, why bother with this pretty much entry-level solid-state amp? Well, I read John Bollinger's Last Call article on live gigging in Nashville in Premier Guitar, and he said, quote, "When I carry an amp, I usually use my Boss Katana. It's light, it's loud, it has built-in drive and effects. If my pedal board goes down for no issues," I believe I also said there's a downtown power is a glitch in Nashville. He says, "I've fried 2 tube amps down there." I have also fried a couple of tube amps at some gigs, and it's certainly not fun, and you have no recourse. You basically you can't. You're getting paid to play, but your amp gets destroyed. How do you go to the club that tell them that your power sucked and destroyed your boutique amp? So anyways, but anyway, back to that. If the Katana ends up being a go-to amp for a guy gigging in one of the biggest music cities, I'm sure I could have easily revisited this amp and make it work for me. The other vindication was finding the YouTube channel of some guys in the UK called the Studio Rats. They have a ton of great videos on their YouTube channel. They talk about getting great sounds out of the Katana, from just parameter tweaking to even replacing the speaker. They do happen to have packs of Katana presets you can buy from their website as well, and I did just that. I tried following along on one of their videos when they were sharing some of the presets and how they created them. I figured it would just be easier to buy them and then save the time in having to recreate them on my own and possibly miss something. And it was actually well worth it and an eye-opener. I got to see how they went about creating their sounds and dig into where, and more importantly, what and how much they were tweaking. It certainly gave me a different perspective on editing patches. And if you ever see a player offer to sell presets or anything for something like a device you use, like a Kemper, a Helix, a Headrush, or yes, even a Boss Katana, it might be worth it just to see a peek under the hood of what other players do to make a multi-parameter item like that work. It really actually was something I was quite amazed with. Now, as far as other upgrades, I don't know if I'm game to swap out the speaker at the moment. I will say that it has a noticeable low end that can feel a little bit flabby, and some of the highs can feel a little bit harsh. Now, it could be due to the fact that this amp wasn't meant for any particular style specifically, and having to cover so many different genres of sounds and guitarists, this speaker works well across the board. But for specific types of music, I can see why some players might find it lacking, or it could be even just missing something right off the bat and very easily for someone to pick up on. Also, this amp has an acoustic mode, meaning that you can plug in an acoustic guitar with a piezo pickup. Most acoustic guitar amps use a separate tweeter and a woofer for optimum performance and sound. And with this being a single 12 that is designed to work for acoustic as well as electric guitar, and all the things that go into electric guitar and the varieties of the sounds that they're trying to generate, this speaker, it does the job, but it might not be a connoisseur's choice. So I get that. Ideally, I'd like to try putting in a Celestion Creamback Neo. I found it very nice sounding in a couple other amps. It is very light as well too, so it will make this an even easier grab and go amp. I'm not sure if it's really worth the investment right now, but it is on my radar for something to keep an eye on and maybe see if that would be useful in the future. Now, the funny thing is, I've also messed with the idea of going with a stereo rig, and the Katana Mark II versions have a function where you can link them together like a stereo pair. So, you know, that's kind of a cool thing, but these ones you can't. They don't have that function. Again, this is kind of like a base model. So I was thinking about maybe getting just another one of these, because I've tended to see them show up used for under $150 on places like Craigslist and Facebook Marketplace. So if you can find that, that'd be really kind of a neat thing. And I think especially at the price and having all the sounds dialed in to where you want them and being able to port them over to two of the same amps, and running these in stereo, treating them just kind of like like two separate tube amps. Set them up with a right sound that would work great, and just kind of set for neutral, and let the pedal board do all the work with the stereo and the drives and all that stuff. But you can still have a really nice sounding solid state amp, and again, really light and relatively inexpensive. So I kind of like that concept. Regardless, I'm really pleased with revisiting this piece of gear, and I'm hoping to really give it a good workout with practice and gigging and some recording, hopefully in the future. And I have an idea of really showcasing what this amp can really do in a stock form in a much more in-depth way in the future. But I'd like to hear from you guys. Have you tried a Boss Katana? Which version did you try out? What did you think of them? Let me know in the space below. I'd love to get your thoughts on this amp, because it's got a lot going for it, and I think it might be kind of a sleeper for a lot of players. So anyways, check that out. I'm going to put links in the area below for Bright Onion for their pedal that I picked up, as well as the Studio Rats, and where you can download their Katana patches as well. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon. Take care.